But the interval I spent in deliberating what to say was a fatal one. Taking up his tomahawk from the table, he examined the head of it for an instant, and then holding it to the light, with his mouth at the handle, he puffed out great clouds of tobacco smoke. The next moment, the light was extinguished, and this wild cannibal, tomahawk between his teeth, sprang into bed with me. I sang out. I could not help it now, and giving a sudden grunt of astonishment, he began feeling me. "Landlord, for God's sake, Peter Coffin," shouted I. "Landlord, watch! Coffin! Angels, save me!"
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get over myself and be comfortable with listening to the sound of myself on mic.
It's tough.
It's a galling irony that we are now podcasters, and I really don't like listening to myself.
Yeah, the most horrifying aspect of it is that sound that you hate of like listening to your own voice recorded is actually how you sound to everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just have to live with that. Can't do anything about it.
Yeah. So, Meg, I see you are sporting a New York Knicks shirt of some kind.
Can you believe it? I got like 2 hours of sleep last night because I was so keyed up. I like went back to bed. I just stared at the black ceiling. I got up. I watched some more clips. I went back to bed. I kept like getting up and on as if I was like haunted by some sort of like Edgar Allan Poe phantom in my house, when it was just the memory of watching yet another Knicks game. In any case, Yep, it freaking happened, dude. What a time to be alive.
I feel like if Melville, if he was alive, he would be a Knicks fan, right? It like makes sense from like a number of standpoints, right? So one,
the Manhattan,
famously, Melville is from New York. Two, the Knicks are named after like the Knickerbockers, right? Which is like if I remember correctly, like some kind of like stereotype of like the Dutch settlers of New York. Yeah, let's see what it. Yeah, the word originates from Dutch settlers' breeches.
That sounds right.
And Melville, his maternal line is Dutch New Yorkers.
It's Dutch, yes.
Yeah, the Gansforts.
So he'd probably be happy about this. I feel like he'd like basketball.
Oh, I think we could get in there. Yeah. Have you guys read The Art of Fielding?
No.
That novel? It's about baseball. It's about a kid who gets drafted because he's an excellent shortstop to a college whose only claim to fame is that once Herman Melville like visited. And their whole identity as the school is based around this. I think they're called like they're harpooneers. I might be making that up, but they've got some sort of like
harpooneers, surely.
Possibly.
No, we got to read this now.
I don't know. I like baseball and I like baseball stories. I like the beginning of that, but in any case, it's kind of funny to think about kind of the bridge between. I don't know if he's got a lot of sports in his work, but part of the interpretive process is like what we're doing, which is the idea of like, well, what can we apply from what we do know, patterns onto other things? You should be able to sort of palimpsest that onto other things. And the idea like, I think he would root for the Knicks. I think he would like the romance of a season almost lost and then turned on like a switch on like a nuclear facility. Seems Melvillian in some way.
I feel like the whale ship is something like a sports team.
Yeah. Yes, what is a GAM but a game of football without the ball?
Jonny, are you feeling like intense British identity or English identity with the World Cup coming up?
I'll be honest, Meg, I wasn't fully aware that it was on. No.
Do you want? Okay, we found the one English dude who does not watch football.
I don't know. Maybe it's a distinct betrayal of king and country, but I could not give a shit.
My gosh!
I really, wow. I almost competitively don't care.
Oh, okay. Fascinating.
That is fascinating.
There
That
is a
is
picture.
fascinating.
There's a
Has to
picture
be.
of me floating around somewhere on social media because I have lots of friends who are super into football, and there is a
Mhm.
picture of me somewhere sat with a group of my friends who are getting really, really excited about whatever's going on in the football. And if you look closely, you can just see me in the background reading Shakespeare's sonnets. That's about the extent of my capacity to interact with anything to do with football. You can get me to the pub. You can lead the horse to water.
Yep, can't make him drink.
But you
Oh,
can't make
boy.
him drink. No,
A room temperature beer.
no. You can, but
Do you have a sport, Johnny, that you watch, or are you fully no sports?
I prefer doing sports to watching them.
Oh,
So,
okay. What sports do you do?
well, God, I've now made it sound as if I'm a super sporty person. No, I like running. I like swimming. Yeah, if it counts, I do yoga as well. I've never really thought about that as a sport, though. Yeah, I am a yoga instructor in one of my sort of different lives. I've not taught for a long time, but I did my training
Wow.
quite a few years ago.
Learning
Yeah.
so much. What an interesting life.
Welcome to PequodPod, the podcast on the wonder world of Herman Melville. My name is Tristan,
I'm Meg.
And call me Johnny.
and today we are talking about the second half of the Spouter-Inn, the part where we get to Queequeg and all the build up to that reveal. Meg, do you want to give us a brief synopsis of what we've got here? It should be relatively brief, I think, considering this is just the tail end of a chapter, but it's a very
Never
meaty
give
tail
me a
end of a chapter.
challenge to be brief when I could not be brief. Yes, so we finally go to bed at the end of this chapter. So we leave off with him kind of regarding the room. And now we finally we open this section with Ishmael in one of those insane moments that happens to a person like once or twice in their life, which is when you're sharing a room, but your roommate got there before you, but they've left. You get back before they do, and then you get to look around their stuff. You're going to poke around, right? It makes sense. It's fine. It's a private moment. They're not going to know. In any case, Ishmael is like, what are we dealing with here? So he starts to poke around. He looks around this guy's bag, which is notably more packed than his own. He seems...
An empty bag would be better packed than
Yes,
Ishmael's.
just a nicer bag where you're like, oh, that's a nice bag. It's like, Ishmael, do you see what
Toothbrush.
we're working with here? Yes. He seems to fail to recognize like a poncho. He sort of, it's eventually sort of the social rudeness of what he's doing kind of catches up with them, and he gets undressed and gets into bed and tries to sleep, but notably not very well. And then like the guy comes in and Ishmael is like, I'm gonna pretend that I'm asleep this whole time. Just kind of to watch. He's interestingly, he's like, I'm not going to talk first. Like this is some kind of power play, which I think is interesting. But the guy comes in. He's covered in tattoos. His face, his bald head, all down his torso, his legs. He puts away what Peter Coffin said he had, what Ishmael calls a New Zealand head, the head he couldn't sell because the market was so saturated. Ishmael, pretending to be asleep, then observes him, who we know will be called Queequeg, going through a sort of worship ritual with what he calls an idol, and then finishing this thing that it seems that he does before going to bed. He takes out his tomahawk, which is doubling as a pipe, lights it, gets into bed with it, which is very dangerous. And Ishmael at this point, as we've read, makes like kind of a sound. Queequeg finally realizes he is actually in bed with him, is quite startled, as a human being would be, and then in dialect basically asks, who the hell are you? Ishmael is like, I'm about to be murdered, because he's a youth and not very worldly, calls the landlord in another amazing scene of Peter Coffin, who is truly the daddy of this chapter. He efficiently, with really good humor, tells both of them to calm down. This is Queequeg. He's a nice guy. And in a very intriguing couple of lines, the very end of this chapter, Ishmael watches Queequeg sort of toss the sheets back and say, "Come back in." He's like, "Well, I draw the line at smoking, but I can tell that this guy does seem nice, and I think I was too fast in my judgments." He climbs back in, and then, quote, "Never slept better in my life."
Yeah. No, yeah. Okay. So Johnny, what do you make of this tail end of this chapter?
I think what really kicks out about it to me is, and Meg's just actually touched on it at the end of that superbly succinct but also very insightful summary. Ishmael reveals himself as a character in the back end of this chapter who is, yes, freighted down with certain prejudices, but who is able to recognize and address prejudice, and to do it remarkably quickly. There is absolutely no doubt about it. He transcribes some very racist thoughts throughout this chapter. It will also not be the last time that it happens. But we see him begin to go through the process of moving beyond prejudice, and precisely to do that by applying reason, but also by starting to cultivate that openness of character, that openness of spirit that a couple of episodes ago, we were saying that Ishmael was lacking, right? In that radical state of isolation that he finds himself in. And that's why, among the fraught racialized vocabulary that peppers this chapter, and indeed the text as a whole, we get those superbly insightful phrases like, "A man can be honest in any sort of skin." This is a super different Ishmael to the Ishmael even at the start of this chapter.
Yes, mere paragraphs ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when he's like, "I look stupid in this outfit. Who would wear such a thing?" It's like, "Oh, I was a fool."
Yeah.
30 seconds ago.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's how it happens to you when you're like 19.
Yes.
They come fast.
Yeah, there is a real youthfulness to Ishmael in this passage, actually.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, that's great. So he Ishmael gets up there. He's starting to poke through Queequeg stuff, which, Meg, I think you're right. I think we all do this. I think we all surreptitiously look at
It's like
stuff.
the sort of tropey like medicine cabinet moment where you're like, what's in here?
Yeah.
You open it and you're like,
Hopefully we all feel.
yes, yeah. We all
Hopefully
do
we
it.
all
We don't
feel
have to say
a
we do
little-
it in the podcast, but like everyone we know. Okay, it's fine.
Ishmael certainly does it. So you mentioned it at first. Queequeg absolutely seems much better prepared for a whaling voyage than Ishmael does. And sort of throughout the rest of this chapter, we'll get the sense that Queequeg is a lot more experienced in whaling. And this will be like one of the things that unites, or Ishmael latches onto. Like, okay, this is somebody who like I can go whaling with and can help me out for sure. So he's got a large seaman's bag, which is definitely better than the carpet bag for sure. It's better packed. He's got this poncho. One of the things that I thought was interesting about this, and I think it's a running thread throughout a lot of Melville's stuff, is I feel like Peru, and specifically Lima, has this hold on Melville a bit. And we do know from a biographical standpoint that Melville visited Lima, Peru, in 1844 as part of the crew of the USS United States. I'm going to pause there. Horrible name for a ship. USS United States. United States ship, United States. Anyway,
they really
that's what
muffed
he was
it on that one. They said put a pin in this and then forgot. And it was like, we didn't update the form. They're just straight up printing USS United States. No, we're going to look like fools. Yeah.
Anyway, but this will come up again in Moby-Dick multiple times, these allusions to Lima. And then we have sort of like this first one here where the South American poncho is mentioned with regard to like this article of clothing that Queequeg has. But yeah, we'll talk more about this later. It comes up a lot in the Town Hose story, which is a fascinating piece of writing that we'll get to eventually, but it's like set at like some later point in Lima. But I digress. One of the things I think that's irrelevant, though, to like characterizing Queequeg, and as we'll go through this, And we had a great conversation that will be released before this episode with Naima Karshmar, where we touch on this too, is like where Queequeg's from is sort of intentionally obscure, right? So he's got this article of clothing that is specifically like mentioned as being like kind of like something from South America. And then he has this idol that's going to be characterized as like looking like a little Congo baby, right? Like we have a lot of these different illusions that make it very difficult to place Queequeg anywhere in particular. And this is going to grow throughout. And I really do, I agree with Naima where she characterizes Queequeg as being like intentionally sort of this hodgepodge of like different and sort of unreconcilable like racial stereotypes of different kinds of indigenous people in order to create this sort of prototypical like cannibal or a prototypical like indigenous person. And like what we have here is sort of this like parody, I think, of like the colonial encounter of like the European with like this indigenous other.
Yeah, it seems like everything that could be going wrong is going wrong. But yeah, I think if you're thinking about the character as a tool made by the human author to do something, it seems like by making him not recognizably African American, not recognizably Native American, not recognizably South American, Melville has decided he's from we're not quite there yet, but like he's from a place I'm making up in my mind. That means I am not beholden to any realistic research like portrayals. I don't have to get like my facts don't have to be necessarily straight. He can have a completely made. He can do whatever. I can use him in whatever way I want. By making him more or less fantastical. He's so cosmopolitan that Ishmael he's beyond Ishmael's recognition. I can't even place him from his skin tone. He's so beyond anything that I've been previously aware of. So we can talk about why that's interesting to Ishmael, who is the driver of our car. But I think it's also interesting to kind of think about it when like Melville's at his like chemistry set, sort of thinking about like, what do I need Ishmael's sort of like negative here to be? I need him to be so interesting and have been to so many places that not only can he pack a good sea bag, it seems like he is made up, as you have said from the interview, that he is an amalgamation of anything I want him to be. And he's just so completely everything different that then we know going out from this chapter that he can be capable of knowledge from any place, of traditions from any place, of appearances from any place, whatever. So he's the scope of like the possibilities for him narratively are huge because the author is not beholden to any traditions from this character.
He's a kind of an embodiment of the extracts in that sense, isn't he? He's an amalgamation of fact, fiction, stuff that's real, stuff that's entirely made up from something unpublished.
He is from something unpublished.
He is from
it's
something
not a real
unpublished.
Place, yeah.
Exactly. True places never are. Is what he'll go on to say about where Queequeg comes from.
Coco Vocal.
That's right.
And I can't remember if it's in this chapter specifically. I think it is, but we get like the tattoos being like this Cretan labyrinth. Like delving into Queequeg is like sort of getting lost in like one's racial stereotypes of the other. He is like this inscrutable other to the European subject, I think. But as like one person.
I really, really love that you've picked up on the way that the tattoos are presented, though, Tristan, because they serve as a perfect mirror for how Ishmael moves beyond his initial ignorance. The tattoos come into clearer and clearer relief over the course of the text. When they're first described in the chapter, they are simply blackish-looking squares, completely nondescript. They hold absolutely no meaning for Ishmael. Then, as you say, they start to take on this labyrinthine quality. Then, smash forward more than 100 chapters on, and it's actually revealed that what they are is a complete theory of the heavens and the earth. And it's only
it is
when
to
actually,
be read. Yeah.
yes, exactly.
You have to learn how to read the text. Yeah,
absolutely, and we'll have ample opportunity to talk about that trope of the body as text in terms of the human form, but also the cetacean form as our discussions evolve. But I think it's such a beautiful little thing that Melville sort of draws out for us over the course, not just of this chapter, but the whole of Moby-Dick.
Jumping ahead a little bit from when he's poking around the room, when he first lays eyes on Queequeg, one of the things I think is interesting, especially like in comparison to what we get earlier in this chapter and in later chapters, is the like kind of fundamental ambiguity when it comes to race of sailors, right? So Bulkington is referred to as being like brown, but he's like tanned on his voyages, and like there's this sort of mutability here. So when Ishmael first looks at Queequeg, it seems like he thinks that this is a white sailor who's gotten a tan and who's got like basically like the equivalent of band-aids on his face from being in a fight, and that's like what he thinks at first he's seeing, and it's only over time that he's able to like, okay, no, this is actually not a white person that's like been tanned by the South Seas. What do we make of this?
Much. I think there's almost infinite things to say. One thing I will settle on right now is I think it makes Ishmael look increasingly, what's the word? He's learning in real time what is going on. And the tool that we're using in this moment is Queequeg's body. That's fascinating. It's uncomfortable. It's succinct. The question is in some ways over by the time the chapter is over. And also, as we've said, something that the rest of the book deals with, which is like, where's the guy from? People like to put things in categories. We like to know origins. It's not an unnatural thought, but also the idea that even when we were talking about Bulkington in that same paragraph, Ishmael is like, well, I think he's from Virginia. So it's like, it's not hard in other places for him to place, or even from our present day storyteller, Ishmael, to be like, oh, I now know that he was from Fiji, a place I've mentioned a couple times, or whatever, any place he could have picked that is like a recognizable human sphere for his reader. Instead, we keep it unknown. What that means is both Queequeg continues to look mysterious to the reader because he is still mysterious to Ishmael. And that is different than, oh, I just haven't met someone from, like, I haven't literally met a Pacific Islander yet. It's still a question. He, because of their beautiful social dance, becomes a like-minded person by the end, and Ishmael realizes that he has had very unfair thoughts that he's brought into this situation, but still the sort of interesting, the exoticism of his racial identity not being answered by the end of the question means that this is something that Ishmael as a narrator is interested in, and the project as a whole is taking beyond this one kind of goofy sitcom scene of he didn't realize it was in bed with me. Like, no, this is what the book is going to be about. And part of that is the idea of sort of drawing this question of his like literal national identity out for as long as Melville feels like it is interesting.
Yeah, no, that's great. Jonny, I know you've been reading Typee now.
Yes.
And so as Meg was saying, like, as we're seeing like in real time, Ishmael's like brain kind of churning, trying to like, how can I fit in this person I'm seeing into like my racial like my racial encyclopedia, basically, right?
Mm.
He goes, okay, this is somebody who's been in a fight. This is a white man who's been in a fight. And then we go, oh no, these aren't like plaster sticker thingies, right? This is a tattoo. This must be like
Mm.
I've heard from in the past, like a white man who has been tattooed by like a cannibal somewhere, which
Yes.
which is a key plot point in Taipei. Do you want
It
to?
is an absolutely fundamental plot point in Taipei, yes, because our narrator, Tomo, lives from a certain point in the novel onwards in absolutely mortal fear of being tattooed, mostly because he witnesses it happening and he sees that it's an excruciatingly painful process. And he thinks, oh my God,
Just depends on the
really?
location.
Well, yes. I mean, the guy who is having it done, Meg, to his eyes. He's having it done to his on his eyelids.
Hard place to go first. That's hardcore.
Absolutely. And so really it's the thing that absolutely pushes Tomo over the edge, and he thinks, I've got to go. I've got to get out of here.
Cannibalism I can sort of live with, but getting a tattoo.
Oh my gosh.
I think that
like wearing a corset every day was no problem for the white ladies in London. Yeah, I think they suffered more over the aggregate. Yeah. But yes, it's a symbol of the thing.
What's really the one of the reasons that I think bringing up Taipei is also very germane, though, is because, as we know, Taipei is very, very heavily based on Melville's own experiences, right, of living among Polynesian people. And so he has a reasonable amount of objective information at his fingertips that he's working with. And of course, that comes back in Omu as well, the sequel to Taipei. So he has a reasonable amount of data that he could use. But what's fascinating is that he chooses actually to dispense with that in his characterization here. And he, again, it's this recurring strategy that we've mentioned in just about every single episode so far. He chooses actually to obfuscate objective details. He chooses to make things ambiguous.
Continuing on, so another thing that jumped out to me is like in the room, as he enters the room, there's a tall harpoon standing at the head of the bed. So this harpoon's looming on the bed. I don't know, Jonny or Meg, if you have thoughts. I don't know if we've really talked too much about the harpoon as such. We talked about it a little bit in the previous episode when there's like the death harvesters and the harpoons on the wall. But I don't know if y'all have thoughts about the harpoon as like for the whaler, the phallic image par excellence.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is.
Yes,
it certainly is. And we are in the...
I have eyes.
And we're in the section of the book where its queer aesthetics are being set up and developed, and that will get... And it's another thing that will get spun out over the course of the text. So, yeah, I think we'd be fools to try and look past the fact that we have a very, very... an easily accessible phallic symbol here. It's also by the bed, and the bed has already been given to us as a coital space. I mean, CF what Peter.
It's where you get spliced.
It's where you get spliced.
Well spliced. Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's also I in no way want to move past the gay part, but I think it's also that's his harpoon, and that's his job. I imagine they aren't supplied by the whaling boat.
It would seem not.
Sort of think about like PPE. Like, do you bring your own harpoon?
I think they do. I think I remember that coming up later. That is, kind of a point of pride.
It's like his, right?
Yeah.
He would like get it back. So it's very, kind of going back to like the goofy thing I said, where it's like you get to poke around their stuff. It's his. It's one of his most important possessions. Probably he didn't take it with him because you leave your important stuff in your room. But I think some of the interesting thing, another interesting thing about this scene, which is so loaded with like everything on Earth, is the idea kind of that we're skipping like 8 social steps of like getting to know someone, and we're just immediately seeing the most genuine, non-theatrical version of Queequeg that is possible, which is that he doesn't think someone else is in the room. And this is all of his stuff. So we see his harpoon, we see him start to like get undressed, he does his like whatever ritual, pretending to sort of feed, this sort of like saying like grace before bed to put in like, you know, a 5-year-old wasp version with his idol, which was like this bat that he brought. And we see I think the theater of it is Melville is like, here's the real man. We could have met him downstairs when everyone was eating dumplings and he was eating a steak, and we could have had a conversation with him, but we don't. He doesn't think Ishmael is in the room. We see the most genuine version of him that is possible. And part of that is his beautiful harpoon, which is, braced up against the wall. So in every way possible is Ishmael learning as quickly and efficiently as he can the nature of the person that he's about to sleep with.
Absolutely. It turns out actually that a proximity to a harpooneer's harpoon, and I don't mean to keep pushing the kind of phallic suggestions there, but it is a very, very intimate encounter. Ahab, many, many chapters after this one, will voice the idea that his harpoon is an extension of himself. Almost like kind of Sweeney Todd-esque, you know, kind of at last my arm is complete again. You know, it's that kind of avant la lettre. But we also will
Sondheim mention.
we love to friend of the podcast, Stephen Sondheim.
Friend of the podcast, Sondheim.
But there's that aspect of it, but we will also see that it's a really, really quotidian object for Queequeg. He uses it to eat, he uses it to shave, and he does all of that with remarkable finesse. So in more ways than one, actually, the harpoon ends up coming across to us as a very, very personal, almost, I would say, intimate object. Say nothing of the fact that, you know, it acquires a kind of, well, almost a kind of sacred quality as the text goes on, and as the practice of whaling is actually given a certain kind of monumentality, almost a kind of, a kind of it does become a sacred mythologized activity, doesn't it?
Sure, yeah. So I do want to flag a couple of things that I thought were interesting before we move forward. So one, going back to some of the homoeroticism of like this encounter, I do love that we do get this longer. We get like a decent paragraph where Ishmael is going through. Okay, then I took off my monkey jacket and I was thinking of this harpooner. Like kind of goes through all these things as he's stripping down to get into bed while he's thinking about this harpooner. And then again, I feel like I'm just gonna have I don't know. I'm not gonna rein myself in. I love all the little New Testament and biblical references, but after he's
our resident Jesus person, after he's thinking about the harpooner, as he strips off all his clothes, he jumps into bed and he commends himself to the care of heaven, which of course is a callback to Luke chapter 23 verse 46, which is when Jesus, so specifically says, and when Jesus had cried with a loud voice, he said, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit, and having said thus, he gave up the ghost. Which is when he's on the cross and when he finally dies on the cross.
Classic Christ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sick Christ.
Yeah.
He's going to do one thing. Yes. Yeah.
Well, while we're waving our representative flags, I did also want to just mention that I think a really definite intertext that is present in this chapter, and especially the latter half of the chapter, is Hamlet. It comes back to what Meg was saying so beautifully about the fact that overthinking is so strongly thematized in this initial encounter with Queequeg. I mean, first of all, I want to just draw attention to the moment just before Ishmael panics and sings out, and then there is the first conversation between them. We get the we get the phrase, but the interval I spent in deliberating what to say was a fatal one.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, okay, I mean, that's Hamlet through and through, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And
you don't even have to read the play. That's what it's about.
You don't even need to know. And then there's a really wonderful section when he is in bed. Oh, no, sorry. He's sat down on the side of the bed and just counting the number of times that the word thinking or thought comes up. In fact, why don't I read it for you, and you'll hear just how dense the language of thinking is. I sat down on the side of the bed and commenced thinking about this head-peddling harpooneer and his doormat. After thinking some time on the bedside, I got up and took off my monkey jacket, and then stood in the middle of the room, thinking. I then took off my coat and thought a little more in my shirt sleeves. I mean, it's supposed to be super, super obvious, but it's such a bold move for us just to have that word just absolutely rammed home to us.
I wonder if he's a comely harpooner.
Well, maybe. I mean,
makes it easier to be thinking about it all the time.
Well, absolutely. But I mean, and also kind of the subterranean epigraph really of this chapter is there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so.
Yeah.
Right. It's and again, it's something that will just come up again and again and again as we move forward here.
One thing.
There we go. I'm taking my Shakespeare hat off now. But I couldn't
no,
let the
it's so
opportunity
beautiful.
go.
It's so beautiful.
Meg made me think of something. So you said classic Christ, and I was thinking, wait a second. One of my favorite ambiguities about the Gospels is the last words of Jesus when he's on the cross, right? So, in fact, Luke is, I would say, not at all classic Christ, because in Luke we get, Father, into your hands I commend my spirit. But in Mark, which is our first gospel, like our earliest gospel, Jesus says, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And to me, it's an interesting choice here. So he's getting into bed. There's sort of this like homoerotic element to it, but he's also thinking, oh, I might die. This might be like my last thing is getting into this bed. And specifically, and so that's why we get this callback in my mind to like Jesus dying on the cross, right? Is because he's going into this thinking, this might be where I die. And he actually goes with the one where he's commending himself into his Father, like he's commending his spirit to God, versus what we get in a lot of the earlier, like a lot of our biblical allusions earlier so far have been about the fact that this is someone who has been rejected or forsaken by the world. And so he specifically goes with the last words of Jesus that are nicer versus the ones that are, I've been forsaken by God.
Nice. That is nice. But unlike God, someone actually comes. Peter Coffin. He said, you rang? Yes?
He does. My question
What a
to
great,
you,
I love this. Yes.
my question for you two is this. How long is Peter Coffin standing listening at the door before he
I think he was like, he's going to need me.
Yeah.
No way. He just gets into bed. He's going to call. And before I start turning out the candles and I get changed, I'm just going to wait. Because he has seen this before.
The grin has not left his face since he's left that room.
He's like got a cigarette.
Yeah, he's grinning all the while. There's poor Sal Coffin in bed with the little nightcap on, going, Peter, when are you coming to bed? And he said, just wait, Sal, wait, I'll be along.
The funniest thing is about to happen, I swear to God. You just wait just a couple minutes.
Maybe she's there. Maybe Sal is actually she's conspicuous by her absence. She's actually just around the threshold of the door, listening in.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
So Peter's coming, yes.
Incredible work.
We do get some good looks. So yeah, we talked a bit about it. One of the other things I want to flag about Queequeg while Ishmael is watching him from bed is, and we talked about it in the interview with Naima, but like Queequeg is described as having purplish yellow skin, which is fantastically vague. What is purplish yellow?
Freaking, you got me, dude.
Yeah, I think about sort of the color of a bruise.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got that. We get, it's only his outside. A man can be honest, any sort of skin. And then specifically, we've got the potential wonderful power of the South Seas sun. And one of the things I do love here is, Ishmael is sort of youthful, but like sort of optimistic line of thinking, like, I don't know what the South Seas sun can do to a white man's skin. Maybe this is the product of that.
He's never shy about just chucking out a theory.
Absolutely.
To be proven or disproven.
No dumb questions.
Oh no, he does have some dumb questions, but we defend to the death his right to ask them.
Yeah, we didn't think it was possible. Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is also interesting that we will definitely touch on more later is I do think it's interesting that Queequeg's idol, if you will, looks like it looks like a little black baby, basically. And like basically how, and especially when we get later, so I'm sure we'll talk about at some point, Pip, we haven't met Pip yet, but Pip is like a little black boy who's on the Pequod. And we talked about it in if you listen to the interview with Naima, how Pip has a soliloquy at the end of Midnight Forecastle where he's like speaking to like the big white god up there, like look down on this little black boy. And I think the specific like a calling in of God as being like a white god up there, like the white man's god, versus the contrast of like a little black baby looking thing being an object of worship and being sort of the exact inversion of what like a white person at this time might expect God to be like, or expect the divine to be like, or expect like an object of worship to be like.
Let that cook. I guess, yeah, we don't want to, Pip is great. And I don't want to take away from his moments too soon when we say it. But I think there's something to be said about like when he is on the ship in the middle of the ocean, for all intents and purposes, he is under white God. Even though he's we talked about this in some of our earlier chapters, but he is at once in the ocean, which is either godless or the perfect embodiment of God or whatever you want God to be, or his true nature, minus the people. And you are there in a ship, which is Mini America, the USS United States. And in that one, almost like an alien ship beam, that is looked over by Wasp God. Like everywhere the ship goes, the cursor is on top of him. So perhaps in that moment, Pip is like, there's only one God in this moment, and I'll talk to him in the terms of which our language can use. Where here, it's forecastle, by the way.
Oh,
Not
yes.
Forecastle, yes, forecastle.
Thank you for
that.
Yes.
We need
everyone, put a note in that.
Forecastle.
There's no way to know just by reading. Someone has to. In any case, perhaps here in his room, by having his personal idol, be that what it is, we never quite, at least in this chapter, we're stuck in whatever Ishmael decides to say it. He gives it the darkest thing he can think of, which is like a baby born in the continent of Africa, and we're like, Ishmael, this could have taken us, we could have taken a second look at this. But in any case, it's this completely, again, to Ishmael, our driver, unrecognizable carved thing. And that is as far from going to mass as is possible to him, it seems. So short of Queequeg praying in his mind just next to the fireplace, as he could very well have done, Melville has him get the thing out and go through a thing, pretending to feed it. It's a ritual. We can recognize that as humans, but Ishmael is like, what's going on? Because there's no referent for whatever he's doing. In fact, he uses other religious names for it later on to make it make sense for him. So when we think about like the color of the god, I think it's sort of about like you can do whatever speaks to you personally up to a certain extent. And beyond that, the pretend society that you're in either won't allow it or you have to do that in your hammock, privately.
Yeah. And again, that sense of its ability to govern one's actions up to a certain extent, I think, is absolutely crucial. And it's a consideration that gets even more complex when we think about, to what you were saying, Meg, earlier about the very kind of westernized and we presume white version of God that we kind of have invoked at several different points in the text. We also, of course, have the white, grand, ungodly, godlike man of Ahab. And we, of course, also have the godly, leviathanic, white Moby-Dick. These three kind of guiding white forces that are in operation throughout the text. So all of that's absolutely true. The thing that makes things even more complicated is the fact that this little idol, it turns out in the next chapter that his name is Yojo, is apparently it is Yojo who Queequeg says has instructed him that Ishmael should go and pick the ship. So who is in control here?
Yeah. And to go back...
And what a person he picked to pick the ship.
The world's
Ishmael.
most indecisive. Ishmael Hamlet himself. Yeah, exactly. The second most indecisive man in all
I'll
of
pick my
literature.
favorite color ship. Okay.
And of course, it's white. It's made of whalebone mostly.
Yeah.
Let's go.
No, I love that. And we should definitely talk about that some more later, as well as, I want to just foreshadow it a bit, but we should talk about it more later. But yeah, I think I think it's important that there is this parallel between Yojo, who speaks from the divine or speaks from God to a certain extent, and Pip, who also has a similar sort of revelatory role after he has his later encounter that we'll get to in many, many episodes time. But I think there is a strong parallel between both of the the idol that looks like a little black boy and the little black boy that we'll meet on the Pequod. Finally, the spell is broken, which he had been bound so long in, and they finally see each other, and Queequeg realizes that he's got a roommate now. And the first thing that Queequeg says is, and I'm just going to read this as plainly as I can, "Hui devil you," which I think is very interesting as Queequeg's first line, because throughout this chapter, Ishmael imparts a devilishness to Queequeg, to this harpooneer that he's going to be encountering. And the first thing out of Queequeg's mouth, who's supposed to be this devil himself, I think earlier in the chapter too, is he said, "Who the devil are you?"
He knows he has to speak in the idiolect of these chowder people.
Chowder people.
He knows what they're going to say.
If only I had not dubbed us scrimshanders in the last set, because chowder folks would have been...
The chowder
we
folk,
can't be chowder people because none of us can do a New England accent to save our lives.
Oh,
that's true. We weren't born into it. I think we're forever visitors to the Cape, not the people who were born there.
Oh yeah, like
tourists.
Like in Jaws, we can never be islanders.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Oh my God, that's great.
But I think you're absolutely right, Tristan, and it is very interesting, that kind of contact vernacular that emerges in that ensuing dialogue between Queequeg and Peter Coffin. They both kind of find themselves using words from one another's language.
Yes, yeah.
We get Peter Coffin using that. What's the word? You sabby. Queequeg, look here, you sabby me, I sabby you, this man, sleepy you sabby. Queequeg, me sabby plenty. Such a mood that he's just there smoking in bed. Wow.
He's so cool. Fuck. He's like, I get it.
I love that line.
You can't smoke in bed. I'm not insured. What a scene. My God. Amazing.
But it's a wonderful, but it's just such a wonderful kind of linguistic soup that Melville sets up for us there. And it means that actually, and it just speaks to the fact that we kind of end up on a much more level playing field here by the end of the chapter. And that's reflected in the fact that actually rather than just a set of mutually exclusive ignorances, we literally end up with a common language here.
Yeah, I love me sabby plenty. I think it's my favorite line from this chapter, because I think it, I think to a certain extent, both Ishmael and to a lesser extent Peter Coffin are like sort of assuming like a level of like ignorance or like I don't want to say like stupid, like inferiority to Queequeg, but he's saying no. I get it. I understand plenty. I may speak in a sort of a nautical pigeon, if you will, but I get it. I'm not nearly as green as this fella that's hiding in my bed.
Yeah.
And it sets us up brilliantly for that chapter that we were talking about earlier, Midnight Forecastle, which is such a rich polyphony of dialect and cross-pollination
Yes.
of language, accent, all this different kind of stuff. It's fascinating for all sorts of ways that we'll get to when we in a million years' time when we get to the chapter.
Yeah, Meg, I am going to dub you our official nautical jargon pronunciation expert.
Oh, Christ. All right.
Yep.
I'll get to Googling. Yeah, that's good. That's good. We don't Google anymore. I'll get to DuckDuckGoing.
Very good. So one of the things, so after Hui Devil You, we get Ishmael say, "Landlord, watch, coffin, angels, save me." And I love picking apart all these religious illusions. But one of the things I think is interesting is when Jesus is tempted by the devil in the desert. All right. So there's 3 temptations that he gets. And one of them is that the devil brings him to Jerusalem, to the pinnacle of the temple. And it's sort of one of the oddest of the temptations. So the other ones are like, okay, you're hungry because you've been fasting for 40 days. Turn these rocks to bread. He doesn't do that. The other one, I'll make you the king of the world. That one makes sense. The third one is, here, why don't you jump off the top of this temple, which doesn't sound particularly, like, it's not very tempting of a thing. From what
the wine and the bread would tempt me. I'm not sure leap from high place would necessarily tempt me, desert or no desert.
Yeah, from what I understand, the rationale behind this being a temptation is, so it has to do with the location, right? So go to the temple and jump off the temple because it's been said, he shall give his angels charge over thee to keep thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. And the utility of this is, you're in Jerusalem, the place that you'll, spoiler alert for the Bible, if you will, you're going to get crucified by these people who don't believe you're the Messiah. But if you jump off and the angels come down and rescue you, that's a pretty good sign that you're the beloved of God, right? But specifically, what I think is interesting about this moment, so we set this up where Ishmael has multiple times identified this harpooneer with the devil. And there's finally the point of encounter with this devilish harpooneer. And unlike Jesus, who's going to tell Satan to get behind me, and I'm not going to invoke the angels to come rescue him, he's going to actually invoke the angels to come rescue him from this devil.
I also like the insistence here. We were talking about that repetition of thinking and thought in that earlier passage. I do like the insistence here on the word landlord. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot to unpack there, partly to speak to what you were just saying there, Tristan. We have Peter Coffin, who is a landlord of his own very contained space. He is king of his own very esoteric castle, but he is a lord of the land, i.e., so he is not the lord in the celestial sense, but also he's a distinctly earthbound figure. He's not this is not a person who goes out to sea. And I wonder whether part of what facilitates the development of the relationship between Queequeg and Ishmael is the fact that they are seabound. We are heading out into a place where bonds are formed in very different ways, where prejudices of necessity evaporate. It's really, really striking to me that this fraught beginning to a relationship begins on land, and then we move into a much more open, a much more fluid, I would even suggest a much queerer space. That is the sea. Right? There's a real insistence on the land-boundedness of this entire exchange.
Yeah, I like that.
We're definitely seeing the different ways that a person can be like community-tized. We've seen the ways that Ishmael has preemptively rejected himself from certain groups, and those groups can be physically big or physically small, numerically big, numerically small. He kind of allows himself to be to identify as a whaler in the future when he's talking about I will be on a boat with Bulkington, but not quite yet. He is still kind of apart from the guys who are eating dumplings because nobody's kind of talking, but they're there in the sense that they're all renters and they're all cold. He's going to sleep by himself because he does not want to share the room, so he's not allowing himself there. But then in this very sweet end of this chapter, he has made a community of two in the bed. So it's interesting in a way of him, Ishmael, like a raindrop on like a car window is like avoiding and then glomping on and then avoiding and then creating like all these different, what are the ways that you can be a part of a group? Obviously, eventually he's going to be a part of a one that makes sense. And but in these sort of opening chapters, the way that he will allow himself to even bond with one person, we're about to see, obviously this person is very important. It's not that he and Queequeg only meet here and then join different ships. This sort of like dramatic and almost kind of strange way. They didn't need to share a bed. They could have just meet together for breakfast, but this incredibly intimate way, perhaps the most intimate way possible in a book of the time.
It's a really, really drawn out process that didn't necessarily need to be included. And so
yes,
it's clearly really important to Melville that we see this process slowed down.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, the beat by beat of it. And it's not ironic. It's totally like we're not like, oh, and then Queequeg is like a jerk. Like it's like they get in bed. He's a lovely guy.
Yeah, it's
just
really...
like Peter Coffin said he would. I slept better than I slept in my entire life. Like the rug isn't pulled out from under us. It's just, and it's lovely. And Queequeg is a super sweet dude. And we're like, I'm so happy. That's great. Yeah, love for you to make a friend.
I'm so pleased that you've pointed out the lack of irony at the conclusion of the chapter. Like, there is shed tons of irony in Moby-Dick. It's one of its most wonderful qualities, I think. But the fact that it all just disappears in the closing passages of this chapter, I think is absolutely wonderful. It's a really, really earnest depiction of one of literature's greatest relationships.
Yes. Yeah. I think the language that that Melville has Ishmael use, never forget that it's written by like the author, not Ishmael himself. Yeah. But I think the language that he uses is so sincere and so sweet. Emotions to me with his tomahawk, throwing the clothes, meaning the bed sheets to one side. He really did this in not only a civil, but a really kind and charitable way. I stood looking at him a moment. This is a very famous passage. For all his tattooings, he was on the whole a clean, comely-looking cannibal. What's all this fuss I've been making about? I thought to myself. The man's a human being just as I am. He has just as much reason to fear me as I have to be afraid of him. Better sleep with a sober cannibal than a drunken Christian.
Words to live by.
Huge Moby-Dick line. And then he says, just tell him to put out his pipe and then it'll be fine. Queequeg kind of rolls over as if to say, I'm not going to bother you. Let's go to sleep. And then he says, good night, landlord. You may go. I turned in. I never slept better in my life. Chapter ends. We are left on such a great feeling. It could have been on like but I kept, I stayed awake for a few minutes just to make sure. Nope. It's like what you see is what you get. And maybe you don't know what you saw because he has tattoos and you've never seen that before. But it was lovely and I slept great and I didn't die and I made a friend.
Even on all those
this is the
corn cobs and crockery.
I was just going to say, Tristan, this is the same bed of which Ishmael had earlier said, whether that mattress was stuffed with corn cobs or broken crockery, there is no telling. Again, there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. It's all over this chapter, even down to how easily he rests on a mattress.
Yeah, as long as there's a clean and comely cannibal there.
Oh my God.
Well, wonderful. Well, I think that was wonderful. audience, thank you for sticking with us. And we will see you next time to talk about what happens when they wake up together in Chapter 4, The Counterpane. But that'll be
There's
for
going to
next
be
time.
snuggling.
Don't miss it.
You've been listening to the PequodPod with Tristan Bavol-Marques, Meg Fancher, and Jonny Wiles. Our music is by Lost in the Loop, with sound engineering by Lauren Ayton. The show's artwork is by Delaney Garrett, and Tristan is on the synths. We want to say a big thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. You can join them over at patreon.com/PequodPod for bonus content and for opportunities to help us keep the show running in ship-shape condition. Ratings and reviews also really help us out, so if you enjoy the show, please do express your thoughts and metaphysical yearnings in the review section wherever you're listening to the show. Tell your friends, tell your foes, tell the white whale on whom you're monomaniacally urged to be revenged. It all helps. Thanks for listening, and until next time, call us the Pequod.